Hello, my name is Scott Davis and welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for March 29th to April 4th of 2015. And on March 29th, we have the sun. You can see it denoted right here as this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Aries and it's in the 17th hexagram. And we can see on the outside of the wheel the chop mark representing the 17, numbered from bottom to top, goes yang, yin, yin, yang, yang, yin. And then the 17th hexagram is then mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here is the 17th gate of opinions following the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. It's located in the Ajna Center in a collective logic energy path in the understanding circuit called the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being that connects to its harmonic, the 62nd gate of detail, preponderance of the small, caution, patience, and detail produce excellence out of limitation. I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on March 29th. We've got the sun in the 17 with the earth in the 18. The north node is in the 48 with the south node in the 21. Mercury is in the 36th gate. And Venus is in the 2nd gate with Mars in the 3rd gate. And then we've got Jupiter retrograde in the 33rd gate. Saturn is retrograde in the 34th gate. Uranus is in the 51st gate. And then we've got Neptune in the 37 and Pluto in the 54. Now, obviously, not every gate activation forms a channel, but some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. So the neutrino forecast really is just a weather report. No matter what the weather, an individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And as we begin the week, we have no channel definitions due to the transit field. We're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi Ching line values daily because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, the lines of the day, when talking about these shifts of line values, he said we can take advantage of the themes of the day. Now, if your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always just notice how the program's affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. March 29th, we have the sun. It's in the 5th line, so the heretical line of the 17. The sun in the 17.5 is no human is an island. The recognition, however, understood that there is no end to hierarchies. Exalted, the ultimate creative expression of interdependency, whether God's will or global synthesis. Opinions that can express the value of being organized, whether mundane or spiritual. Detrimented, the arrogance, despite all the evidence, to claim that the buck stops here. The possibility of opinions to refuse to see the value of being organized. And 5th line days, the energy of the 5th line is about projection. The projection always goes from positive to negative. First being they could do it, they'd be great at it. And then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it, or whatever reason the expectation is not met, that's when the punishment comes in. And this really does affect the nature of personal relationships. Universalization is another theme that we see with the 5th line, where something spreads like a virus, whether it's a YouTube video or a Facebook post that gets millions of viewings. We've also talked about seduction being another 5th line theme. And then later on the 29th, the sun then moves out of the 5th line, heretic line, into the 6th line, the role model line. Again, 17th hexagram. The shift happening at 10:02 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time And so you want to convert that time to your local time zone. The sun in the 17.6 is the Bodhisattva, the perfected falling, one with and the same as perfected leading, exalted, the great nurturer. The nature of this position is always positive. The possibility in understanding the nature of interdependency to express opinions of value to others. Detriment, the tendency on the perfected path to believe that it's a straight line that ends rather than a circle, where understanding is achieved, possibly the possibility of having the opinion that is not that there is nothing else to learn. And sixth line days again. So here we are. We're on the roof of the hexagram. I like to think about if I'm on the roof of my house, I don't tend to be looking at my house. I'm looking at what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on around the house, what's beyond the house. And so that's kind of a quality of the sixth line. Ross said that not to get stuck with your head in the clouds, because you'll end up with something banging into your kneecaps, because there's a lack of focus on what's going on around us under the sixth line energy, because folks are really looking beyond their immediate environment. Perhaps not seeing cars coming or not seeing bills coming, things of that nature. And then also on the 29th, Mercury moves out of the 36 and into the 25. And so with Mercury moving into the 25, coming out of the G center, we get this channel definition, and of course the definition of the G center and the ego center coming with that. And so first of all, Mercury in mythology was the messenger of the gods and represents communication and expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music. So what do we communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what might be communicated when Mercury's in the 25? Well, we might hear people communicating about competitions or being competitive, or other people being competitive. These would be themes that we might hear about when Mercury's in the 25. This is the gate of the spirit of the self, innocence, the perfection of action through uncontrived and spontaneous nature. Mercury's detrimented in the first line of the 25, which is selflessness, motiveless action, detrimented, a tendency to publicize one's selflessness, the insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. And then with Mercury in the 25 and Uranus is in the 51, we've got the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first until April 1st, where we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. This is an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on something unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. By following your strategy and authority, it will help you to determine if this initiation is correct for you, or if faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum shift, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're likely to see people become more competitive, pushing the boundaries, getting outside of their comfort zones, which will be shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this period, recognize that this is just for a few days, and then the conditioning force will move on. But this could seem that folks are less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic. And with the defined ego center, people without a defined heart center may feel they have something to prove, or make promises or commitments that are not correct for them. And then the defined G center could influence folks without to obsess about where they're headed and where they will find love. And then on the 30th, the sun moves out of the 17 and joins the south node in the 21, and Earth moves out of the 18 and joins the north node in the 48. So the Earth is in the gate of the depth, the well, the necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good. This shift happens at 8:48 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with the sun in the 21st gate of the Huntress, biting through the justified and necessary use of power in overcoming deliberate and persistent interference. The sun in the first line of the 21 is warning the use of force as a last resort, exalted the fierceness to be respected without recourse to action, the willpower and ego to ensure respect, and then detrimented an inherent peacefulness that all too often turns a necessary warning into a plea, a lack of willpower that is forced to ask for respect. And we've got, we're in a new hexagram, so we're in the lower trigram, first, second, third lines, representing more of a personal process, more of an inward perspective, things of that nature. So people get really absorbed in their own process under this influence. Themes of the first line are fear or anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it's a day to study, not to act, a day to look into things, not to jump, a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or don't know. And on the 31st, the sun then moves into the second line. So moving out of the investigative line into the Hermit Line of the 21. The shift happening at 7:35 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 21-2 is described as might is right, the legitimacy of action in response to flagrant and persistent interference, exalted, powerful, and extreme reaction. Here, the severest action will be the most successful. The legitimate rejection of interference on the material plane, detrimented a tendency to regret severity, no matter how legitimate, the ego uncomfortable with severity. And second line days, when we're in the Hermit Line, people are waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly called because of natural talents. People get stuck in their own trip. Not a great day to have a party because people would rather stay home under the influence of the hermit. And then on April 1st, the sun then moves up into the martyr line, the third line of the 21, at 6:23 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 21-3 is powerlessness, where the just are concerned, where the just are condemned to a futile confrontation with superior forces, exalted defeat as a survivable humiliation, often acceptable through the abuse of drugs and alcohol, unless one's own material path, the breaking, unless one follows one's own material path, the breaking of the ego by superiors, detriment and total withdrawal, a lack of will for the material path in order to protect the ego. And third line days are days to be careful on the road, be careful of swinging doors, swinging elbows. Things bump into you under the influence of the martyr, which is, of course, about a trial and error process, and bonds made and broken, and a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. So it might be a day when we have bonds made and broken. There could be trial and error process that we go through. It could be a good day to do business or work on the material plane, but you have to be careful because things can go wrong. But ultimately, the purpose of those are to lead us to some form of discovery. And then on the first, Mercury moves out of the 25 and up into the 17, which means this definition goes away, and So we talked about Mercury being the messenger of gods. Basically, Mercury is about communication. So what might be communicated when Mercury's in the 17th? Well, people might be expressing their opinions, many without any details to back them up. This is the gate of opinions, following the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. And Mercury in the first line of the 17 is openness, exalted, the energy to sustain a broad spectrum of stimuli, the possibility of having many opinions, uh, detriment, a tendency to limit openness to aesthetically pleasing stimuli, the possibility to limit opinions to what is pleasing. And then on the second, the sun moves into the fourth line. So up here in the opportunist line of the 21st hexagram, the shift happening at 5:11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 21-4 is described as strategy, careful appraisal of opposing forces to establish a proper response. Exalted, success in action through clarity, the ego to succeed on the material plane, and the instinct to use willpower effectively in response to conditions. Detriment, a tendency when in the right to misjudge the power of one's opponents. The drive when in the right to follow one's ego rather than one's instincts. And fourth line days, we've moved out of the lower trigram to the upper trigram into transpersonal energy. So we really have a change of perspective from moving from the inward perspective of the lower trigram to more of an outward perspective of the upper trigram, with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking. Fourth line days are great for social interactions. People are more open to networking, to being friendly and social. And then also on the second, Venus moves from the second gate to the 23rd gate. So let's talk about Venus. Venus is really about morality and natural law, and how we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us, what the values are, and what disturbs you on a moral level. And your design and personality Venuses tell of a moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life. And then if you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution. In the 23rd, Venus is in the gate of assimilation, splitting apart, amorality, the awareness and understanding which leads to acceptance of diversity. Venus in the first line of the 23rd is proselytization, the attempt to undermine one set of values for another. Exalted, the sage, who in the extreme can defend evil as part of the greater good, the powerful expression of an instinct which will undermine established values. Detrimented, the missionary whose very light will bring darkness, the powerful expression of an insight which will produce negative effects. And then on the third, we've got the sun moving into the fifth line. So moving out of the opportunist line into the heretic line of the 21st hexagram at 4:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 21-5 is objectivity. The use of force must be based on impartiality and not emotionally motivated. Exalted, a principled and legal character that ensures objectivity. The balanced ego, whose willpower is applied objectively. Detrimented, the drive for elimination is so powerful that objectivity is related purely to cause and not effect. The ego, whose willpower is applied subjectively. And again, we're back to the fifth line day, which we talked about being about projection, also suspicion, universalization, and of course seduction, all being fifth line energetics. And then also on the third, Mars moves from the third hexagram to the 27. Oop. Get back that. 27. And put the 23 back up here. All right, let's just keep going here. Mars is in the first line of the 27, which is selfishness, exalted, the ego-driven first law of caring for oneself, which is not necessarily at the expense of others. The power to care for oneself first, detrimented envy and its attendant misfortunes, the power of selfishness that is manifested through envy. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. And Mars represents the warrior archetype. And by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality. Mars is from immaturity to wisdom. And then on the fourth, the sun then moves into the sixth line of the 21 at 2:51 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 21-6 is chaos, where ineffective action leads to disorder. Exalted, the war of attrition, the continuance of illegitimate action in the hope of eventually succeeding despite all odds and increasing disorder, where the ego is out of touch, the display of willpower that leads to disorder, detrimented withdrawal and reliance on inner order in a chaotic situation, where the material direction is chaotic. The ego will withdraw and use its power to find an inner order. And 6 line days, we talked about that, we're being on the roof and looking beyond the immediate environment. And so basically, this brings kind of a lack of focus on what's happening in the immediate environment. And then also on the 4th, Mercury moves out of the 17, and it's joining the Sun and the South Node in the 21. And we talked about Mercury being about communication and the messenger of the gods earlier in the report. So what might be communicated when Mercury's in the 21? Well, the control of where to live or what to wear or what to eat. We might hear conversations about those type of things. This is the gate of the huntress, biting through the justified and necessary use of power in overcoming deliberate and persistent interference. Mercury in the first line of the 21 is warning the use of force as a last resort, exalted the fierceness to be respected without recourse to action, the willpower and ego to ensure respect, detrimented and inherent peacefulness that all too often turns a necessary warning into a plea, a lack of willpower that is forced to ask for respect. So no matter what energies are conditioning you during this week, remember this experience is about being a passenger that's riding in a vehicle driven by the magnetic monopole. And so let the vehicle take you where you need to go by following your strategy and authority. You can enjoy the scenery, see what's going by. I think every day is a blessing, no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of our lifetime on the world stage. Take some time, though, to observe your play, observe your movie, as well as act your part, remembering you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth, the next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on April 5th of 2015. It should be available on the 4th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook or Blogger or YouTube. There's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as texts as widely as you choose. I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. And we're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And if you're interested in making a donation, again, just contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for all these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. So looking forward to connecting with you next week, or perhaps in a reading or a future video. All my best to everybody.